Hi friends, my name is Alyssa Chambers and this is Astrology and Makeup. Today we're going to talk about the different types of signs, so it should be a pretty quick video, nothing really crazy, but this will just help you get an understanding of the types of signs a little bit better and why they behave the way that they do. I'm going to start by explaining the different elements, which I feel like is pretty obvious, but of course I want it to make sense. So the elements are what's really important when you think about the types of signs like cardinal and fixed and everything, because I like to think of it literally as if it were a part of that element. So if you're talking how the signs start, it starts with Aries, and Aries is fire, and fire is passion. It's the beginning of things, it's the spark of things. Fire, any kind of fire sign or in any kind of fire house, any kind of, which is why I think it's more important to learn the elements as houses as well. It's going to add that little bit of extra heat, that little bit of extra passion, that little bit of extra oomph, if you will. So if you have some kind of sign that's earth, but it's in a house that's predominantly fire-based, that fire is going to help ignite it and keep it going. Same with anything else, water, what have you. The fire is going to keep it going. So you want to keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about anything that's involving fire signs, anything that's a push, if you will. Now the signs always start as fire with Aries, goes through all four elements, and then goes around to another fire sign, in which case is Leo, and then goes around and continues to go until you're through the zodiac. So for the next element, you would go with Earth, because Taurus is Earth, and Taurus follows Aries on the houses. In order, it goes around like that. And Earth is more of stability. It's things regarding money. It's things that have to do with keeping it cool, chill, calm, keeping yourself from getting a temper, keeping yourself under control, essentially. Also, it's very inner stuff that you don't mention. So if you have an earth sign and it doesn't have anything pushing it, a lot of earth signs kind of bottle up. They don't really talk about things. They have to be pushed or have an element pushing them. So that's how you have friendships and relationships that are important, because if you're an earth sign and your friend is a fire sign, then of course they're going to push you to want to be your best, hopefully, if they're a good friend. And that's going to really change how you act depending on who you're around. Next, the first example would be Gemini. If you watched this playlist all the way through, if you're watching them in number order, then you'll know that Gemini is an air sign. Air signs are all about intellect, which doesn't mean they're smart. It just means that they're all about it. So a lot of times people just assume that you're smart if you are an air sign, but it's more of like, what did you want to learn? That doesn't necessarily make you smart. Sometimes it's just remembering facts. But air is intellect. It's how we speak. It's things we think in our innermost, like thoughts and subconscious, and usually how we verbalize them. So again, this is why it's important to pay attention to your houses and know your birth time, because if you don't know your birth time and you don't know your houses, if you have a lot of heavy air, such as myself, then the way that you speak isn't interpreted to the fullest. because you want to know not only how someone speaks, but why they speak that way. So if you have an air sun and you're communicating, but you have only air other signs, like your Mercury and Venus, which is very likely, that is possible, then you're not going to articulate yourself probably as well as somebody who speaks with passion. You're not going to, people aren't going to listen to what you have to say and be like, wow, they had a lot to say. A lot of times it'll be like, wow, they had a lot to say. Going from that, you have to keep in mind those kinds of situations where things can counteract each other as well. Because the next thing is water. So water is emotions, which we've gotten into before, but water can be all different types of ways. There's water in a glass, there's water in the ocean. They're very different things, and I think it's really important to understand that when you're looking at someone's chart, the depth of their emotion regarding the other signs influencing it. Now, yes, when you learn astrology, typically one of the first things you learn is the elements. But I feel like that's relatively common knowledge, so that's why I didn't jump right into that to begin with. I started with the planets because the planets never change, and then signs, etc. So I wanted you to make sure that you understood everything, and then you understood how the elements are in regards to physical form. The way I like to think of the different types of signs, so cardinal, mutable, and fixed, is they go around the same way. I'm going to stop talking with my hands now. They go around the same way that the elements do, is they go in order. So it goes cardinal, fixed, mutable, again and again. It starts with Aries, which I know it doesn't seem like Aries is cardinal. When I explain it, it'll make more sense. Like, you hear the word fixed and you probably think of Aries, but Aries isn't fixed. Like, yeah, they do kind of obsess about things, but it makes more sense if you think of them as the beginning of something, like a baby. That's why I wanted to explain the houses before I explained the fixed and mutable and all of that, because I wanted you to understand the way that I go about it as if it's stages of life and not as if it's, you know, this house means this because of this. I want you to think of it as if it's stages of your life and how those stages of your life affect you. What is this light on me? But it's how those stages of your life affect you and change you as a person. So when you think of Aries, I want you to think of it as your first house. I want you to think of it as being cardinal and a fire sign. And once you start to figure that out and figure out which ones are which, it really helps to understand. And if you were to watch all these videos that I've made so far through in order, it would really help you to understand your chart in the best way possible, which is why I did it that way, and I hope that it helps. Cardinal is the beginning of things. Cardinal is the initial spark that gets you going, and it's also the beginning of every season. So no matter, like, it depends on what time of year, but that's the beginning of each season, is each of the signs in each of the different types. So that really helps to understand things better, because when you think of Aries, then you'll think of like the beginning of spring, and then you'll think of it as the beginnings. So Aries is the beginning of spring, Libra is the beginning of autumn, Cancer is the beginning of summer, and Capricorn is the beginning of winter. These type of people who are heavy in those signs or heavy in the houses that are those signs are people who they keep it going. They are the beginning thoughts. So it's the beginning of emotions, the beginning of stability, the beginning of thoughts, of ideas, of things like that. Next you have fixed signs beginning with Taurus, and if you've met a Taurus, you'll understand. But that is in no way an insult. I love Tauruses and I love fixed signs because they typically say it how it is. They know and understand the world how it is. They're very realistic usually, if not pessimistic, which sucks, but they get what's going on in the world. And when you think of the elements, that's what helps me to remember. So if you're thinking of, for instance, Scorpio is water, and Scorpio is also fixed. So I like to think of Scorpio as emotional ice. People who are Scorpio or have things in their 8th house often get very stuck on things. They become obsessed with things. It's a lot of deep inner emotional issues and trauma in their life. And I think that thinking of it as ice is really, really helpful because that's just how they strike people and how people take them. Because a lot of people will have hate on Scorpios, but it's misunderstanding because Scorpios usually, they weren't born that way. They were made that way. They had things happen to them, and the only way that they could do well in life and do better is they had to be cold. The really cool thing about fixed signs is that they are the ones who do the follow-up. They're the ones that if they say they're gonna do it, then they do it. And that's why people in those signs get so frustrated with other people, because they themselves would have done it already. And finally, you have mutable signs, which a lot of people see them as being wishy-washy, but that's because they're probably going to close the deal. They take what they've learned over the experiences that they've had and they apply it. They don't get stuck on it. They don't start a new idea. They don't try and, figure out more. They're done. They do it and they finish it. So after you have your idea, which is Cardinal, you have to start to put that idea into motion. That's where your fixed sign comes in. This is really important when we start to talk about the moon, because the moon sign is very important to who you are as a person and how you're going to act and react to things and how you should plan your life. So after you have your fixed sign, we're obsessed with that thing, then you go into your mutable sign, which is like the deal closer. They take everything they've learned, they work on it, and then they put it into action and they finish the deal. So the way that you learn the houses in order, it goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the way around. So it goes fire, earth, air, water. Fire, earth, air, water. Fire, earth, air, water. Then it goes cardinal, fixed, mutable. Cardinal, fixed, mutable. So Aries is cardinal, Taurus is fixed, Gemini is mutable, all the way around. So throughout the year, that's why we're always getting new ideas and finishing them, and why it affects people differently, because what's happening in the planets is different than what happened in our chart when we were born. So if you can keep track of the planets, then you can keep track of your chart, and you can start to learn on how these things will affect you and affect your chart, or how they oppose. So because Taurus is fixed, for example, or Leo, or Scorpio, or Aquarius is fixed, those are all signs that are going to contradict other things and make other things harder. Where for your immutable, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, those are going to be things that are more understanding or have a hard time picking what they want to do, and that's why sometimes it's hard to close the deal. Or Cardinal is sometimes you'll come up with a brand new idea. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, those are the main starting ideas. If you can remember this and apply it to your chart, it'll really help you understand yourself better and understand the people around you better. That's why a lot of times people get frustrated with like Leos or Aquarius or Scorpios, because they see them as being like, they're so stubborn, you know, or like Taurus, they're so stubborn. No, they have their idea and they know how they want to go about it, and they're going to do it that way. And they might not be as good with reasoning as somebody who is mutable. And Cardinal is they started their idea. So they don't want your help sometimes. So sometimes, depending on how strongly a sign feels about something, is how well they're going to be receptible to like criticism and stuff like that. Especially if you think about their Mercury. If their Mercury is in a fixed sign, they're going to talk to you in a way that is, this is how it is. If their Venus is in a fixed sign, that's how they love and that's how they love. That kind of situation. So I think it's really cool to think of it that way, and that it really helps me to understand a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.